Loving pranams at the lotus feet of our most beloved Bhagawan. By Swami's grace, we have been ruminating on the beauty and glory of the Bharatiya culture. Bhagawan tells us that the essence of Bharatiya culture is the ability and the awareness to see the Atman or God in every being, not just in every being, but in every object which is part of creation. Over the past few episodes, we've been reflecting on the practical significance of this particular truth. In the last episode, we spoke about how Bhagawan translates this into one of the elements of the 9-point code of conduct, where he says, speak lovingly, sweetly to everybody whom you come into contact with, and we explored various aspects of that. Bhagavan also gives us a practical prescription which helps us live this awareness that the Lord is there in every being through one more point which is part of the code of conduct, where he says, do not talk ill about others, especially in their absence. He's already told us what to do in their presence. He says that when you're in their presence, speak lovingly, softly. And if you can't, then avoid the situation. Don't come into contact with them. And of course, in extreme situations where you have to be tough externally, but don't carry hatred in your heart. But what if a person is not present? Sometimes there's a tendency to think about, to speak about what is not okay with the person. Talking ill about others, especially in their absence. And Bhagavan says, don't do that. Why? Because Bhagavan says, Sarva Deva Namaskaram Keshavam Pratikachati, Sarva Jiva Tiraskaram Keshavam Pratikachati. Sarva Jiva Namaskaram Keshavam Pratikachati, Sarva Jiva Tiraskaram Keshavam Pratikachati. When you respect, or when you adore, or when you worship, or when you serve any being, that reaches the Lord, because the Lord is present in everybody, and that's what the essence of the Bharatiya culture is. And Bhagavan also warns that when you harm anybody or talk ill about anybody, that tantamounts to talking ill or casting aspersions on the Lord himself, because the Lord is present in everybody, because that is the essence of the Bharatiya culture. Now let's reflect on this. What causes us to speak ill about others? And this is my own reflection. I don't presume to share this as somebody who's perfect. I myself struggle with this. I myself struggle with this tendency to, where you feel tempted to speak ill about others. So whatever I'm going to share over the next few minutes is primarily, I consider that as an opportunity given by Bhagawan for me to reflect on this particular prescription that he's given. Do not talk ill about others, especially in their absence. So what causes somebody to speak ill about others? One of the things is basically the tendency to, for our eyes and thoughts to ruminate on what is not okay with somebody. There are two ways to approach life. One is you can focus on what is okay with somebody, what is nice with somebody, what can I learn from that person, what is good about that person, or what is good about that situation. The other thing is a tendency to focus on what's not okay. Now there are two ways in which you can operate in life. Now, one very useful habit is to cultivate the tendency to, in every situation, And with every interaction with every person, focus on what is nice about this person, or what is beautiful about this situation, or what is good about this person. Bhagawan gives a very beautiful example, illustration of this from the life of Jesus. He says that one day, Jesus, along with his disciples, the apostles, were walking the streets, and right in the middle of the road was a dog which had dead, and there were vehicles which had passed on it, and there's a lot of flesh and blood and gore. And what happens is that naturally there was a lot of stench, and the sight is very, unbearable sight. So everybody was trying to avoid that particular, that spectacle, and kind of move away from the dead dog, the rotten dead body of the dog. Interestingly, the only person who looked at it was Jesus. And Bhagavan says that Jesus points out to his disciples the remaining teeth of the dog. Now, it's sparkling white teeth. And he says, look at the dog's teeth. How white is it? Does the dog brush its own teeth, or does anybody brush the dog's teeth? But see how white it is. Now look at this. Amidst all that gore and blood and gory sight, Jesus' eyes went only onto that white sparkling teeth. Now this is a wonderful example of how you can approach life. Now, so see, your mind is trained. The message from Jesus' life is that his mind is trained to only see what is nice, what is good, what is noble, what is pure, what is beautiful, and what is the opportunity in the situation. What can I learn from it? And then ignore the rest. Because the moment you focus on what is not okay in a person, what is not okay in a situation, that is when the tendency arises to talk ill about others. So one is to train our mind to focus on what is good, as the life of Jesus illustrates, and it's a simple matter of practice. The mind is like an animal, it can be trained. So it can be very powerful like the elephant, but even a powerful elephant can be trained by a mahout. So with training, this is possible. So that is point number one. Second is the second thing in my limited understanding, which actually gets us to speak ill about others, is the feeling that others are responsible for my suffering. Now that's a tendency which gets us to speak ill about others. When you feel that, oh, I lost this opportunity because of this person, or there was a certain pain inflicted on me because of this situation. But what Bhagavan tells us, that all the experience that we have in our life are merely the result of our own action. Bhagavan gives the example of a postman who delivers a telegram in a house. Okay, he delivers a telegram in a particular house, and he delivers a telegram in the next house. In the first house, when the telegram is delivered, there are people who are celebrating, and they are, there's laughter, and they distribute sweets because there's some great news which has been delivered through the telegram. In the second house, people start weeping, people start mourning, they start crying, all that happens. Now Bhagavan asks, is the postman responsible for the happiness in the first house? Is the postman responsible for the sorrow in the second house? He's not. Because the postman is just a messenger, right? So often what happens is that yes, there are bitter experiences, there are pleasant experiences which are delivered through people, but somewhere at the end of the day, the realization is that these are the results of our own action. Now, I don't mean to say that you must thereby be servile. It doesn't mean that you have to, allow people to abuse you or take advantage of you. That's not the point at all. We already spoke about in the last episode how Bhagavan has said that you are Dina before Rama, but Dhira before Ravana. Yeah, of course, you will take practical steps which are required to avoid people who create pain for you. But what we are talking really about is feeling in our mind that that person is the cause of our pain. So Bhagavan says that's not the case. So the more we internalize this, what happens is that you stop feeling malice or hatred towards the other person, and the tendency to speak ill about others, that also tends to disappear. One useful way to approach life, and Bhagavan says this, and see, all experiences that we have in life are messengers, and Bhagavan says when the message is delivered, the messenger will disappear. So a very useful thing is when we go through painful situations in life or encounter people who causes a lot of pain, it may be a good idea to ask ourselves the question, what's the message that Bhagavan is trying to teach me through this experience? And interestingly, what tends to happen is that once you get the message, once you get the learning, you'll find that the messenger disappears. The person somehow moves away from your life, or you move away from the person, and that tends to happen. That's an interesting experiment to try, and there are a lot of people who have experienced this. So again, the feeling that others are responsible for my pain is something which gets us to criticize people, but Bhagawan gives us the right understanding to overcome this particular false belief. And when we master this, then what happens is that our conduct becomes very, very delightful, so delightful that we end up pleasing Bhagawan. And let me end with this, this wonderful anecdote. Bhagawan once had taken a group of students to a place where he's gone. I think it was in Ooty. Bhagawan had gone to Ooty. There's this mandir which was there called Nandanavanam. I think it is Ooty, if I remember right. Bhagawan had taken a few students there. So Bhagawan had gone in a car and the students had gone in a van. And Bhagawan usually, to give joy to the students, he would go out on, take a small round in the car, and then would also ask these students to follow in the van. He had given clear instructions to the warden to ensure that the driver fills enough diesel in the van because he had planned to go out in the evening. But the driver felt that there was enough diesel, so he disobeyed the instructions. So in the evening, Bhagawan goes out. The driver had a particular calculation of how much diesel would be required. But that day, Bhagawan took a very long round, and the van ran out of diesel, and it stopped on the way. And then Bhagawan's car continued. Bhagawan comes back to the mandir and is desperately looking for the children, saying, "Where are the boys? What happened to the van?" And then finally the van comes after the diesel is filled. Once they reach the mandir, then Bhagawan is very upset, quote unquote, and he says, "What happened?" He told the warden, "I asked you to ensure that there's an adequate diesel." The warden says, "Swami, but I did tell the driver, but the driver felt there was enough diesel." And then Swami picks up a particular student, a young boy, school boy, and he says that, this boy, you tell me, whose mistake is it? Is it the warden's mistake, or is it the driver's mistake? I gave instructions to the warden. It was his responsibility to have got that done. But the warden says that the driver didn't follow the instructions. So whose mistake is it? The warden tappa, driver tappa. In Telugu, Swami asks, whose mistake is it? Now, look at this great opportunity. Bhagawan says, do not talk ill about others, especially in their absence. Now here, the Lord himself is giving you an opportunity to judge or talk ill about the warden. Okay? And the driver. And he is giving the sanction. The divine authority is there. But this boy does something very, very beautiful. He says, "Swami, warden tappu kaadu, Swami. It's not the warden's mistake." And Swami looks at him and says, "Then is it the driver's mistake?" "No, Swami, driver tappu kaadu, Swami. It is not the driver's mistake also. So it's not the warden's mistake. It is not the driver's mistake. Then whose mistake is it?" And very sweetly that boy says, "Swami, van tappu, Swami. It's the van's mistake because it is the van which stopped." So beautiful. So, and Bhagavan was so pleased because here was an opportunity to speak ill, and the wisdom and the good sense of this boy, the upbringing of the boy, the good samskara which had gone into this boy, helped him not to take the bait, not to be tempted by this literally God-given opportunity to speak ill about somebody. And it ended up delighting the Lord. So when we follow this, it delights the Lord, and that is what we want at the end of the day. Swami, looking at us very proudly and says, "Here is my child who actually followed what I said," and which of course Swami is delighted, because ultimately not for his sake, he's because top to toe he is selfless, because he knows that we have moved one step ahead in our spiritual journey. So do not talk ill about others, especially in their absence, is a practical manifestation of one of the core tenets of the Bharatiya culture, which is that the Lord is present everywhere. The Atman is all pervading, is present everywhere. Many times when we talk about these, Swami's simple teachings like this code of conduct, sometimes we say, these are things which are easier said than done. But I feel it is easier done than said. Just think about it. If you go and tell somebody, speak lovingly and sweetly to everybody, or you say, do not talk ill about others, especially in the absence, this sounds very, very, very ideal. So, saying this to others is, difficult. You may not find acceptance, but demonstrating this as part of your life is easier, is more convincing, and is very doable, is very practical. So, with Bhagawan's teachings, it is not easier said than done. It's easier done than said. Because Bhagawan himself says he's a PT teacher. Practical. It's not theoretical knowledge, practical knowledge. And that is our Bhagawan. He makes every subtle truth, the highest spiritual truth, so real, and he's made it very, very simple in the form of the code of conduct. So this is a practical manifestation of the Bharatiya culture. By Bhagavan's grace, we'll continue to explore the grandeur yet simplicity of the Bharatiya culture in the episodes to come. Jai Sai Ram.